Hey everyone, Joe Stefan here from Line Blue Media in partnership with George's Cameras. Meet the Sony ZV-E1, the latest addition to Sony's full-frame E-mount family. So in this video, we'll be doing a comparison with the Sony A7S III, compare it to the ZV-E1. Stay tuned to find out if this camera is for you. Now, the ZV-E1 shares more high-end specifications with the more expensive A7S III, but the ZV-E1 presents itself as a smaller and more affordable option. In this comparison, we look at the main differences between these two products. But first, we have an important list of all the things that they have in common. Both have a 12 megapixel full frame sensor. They share the same dual ISOs in S-Log3, 640 and 12,800, 4K 60 frames per second with no sensor crop, 10-bit 422 internal recording with S-Log2 and S-Log3, and S-Cinetone. 10 frames per second maximum shutter speed, JPEG or compressed RAW. One thing to note, the 4K 120 frames per second and Full HD 240 frames per second will be available on the ZV-E1 in June of 2023 with a software update. More information is available on the Sony website, which we'll link in the description below. Now, there are a lot of differences between these two cameras, but let's start with one that's very simple yet important. The ZV-E1 doesn't have a viewfinder, only the rear LCD monitor. The A7S III has an electronic viewfinder, and it's one of the best you can find on the market with amazing resolution. And as you can see, the ZV-E1 is a lot more compact than the A7S III. It is lighter and doesn't have the same build quality as the A7S III, but still comes with dust and moisture resistance. The ZV-E1 comes in at just 483 grams, while the A7S III is at 699 grams. The A7S III model offers more physical controls, one extra dial to control exposure settings, and the autofocus joystick on the rear. One nice thing you'll find on the ZV-E1 is the tally lamp on the front, which lets you know when the camera is recording. This is so useful when doing solo vlogging. Looking at the connection ports, they both have a 5 gigabits per second USB-C audio input and output 3.5mm jack. There is also a HDMI port, but it's only a micro type D size on the ZV-E1, whereas the A7S III has a full-size HDMI port. Finally, when it comes to the battery, both cameras use the same MPF FZ100 and have a similar rating for stills photos. 570 frames per charge on the ZV model and 600 frames per charge on the A7S III model. Both can be charged or powered via USB. The ZV-E1 and the A7S III both have amazing video specifications, but there is one difference. The A7S III model is larger and includes a heat dissipation structure to help the camera cope with high temperatures when recording 4K for long periods of time. In my testing, the ZV-E1 was very warm after about 15 minutes of recording, and the SD card was extremely hot when I took it out, so it's something to keep in mind. The ZV-E1 can be used with one card only. There is a dedicated slot on the side, compatible with a UHS-2 SD card. But the A7S III has a dual card system, and you can use both the UHS-2 SD card or a CF Express Type A card. Now, these two cameras have an incredible autofocus system with advanced software capabilities. They both feature real-time tracking, and they can recognize humans and animals. But the ZV-E1 goes a little step further. First, it inherits the latest technology Sony released with the A7R V. Its dedicated AI processing unit can recognize subjects more in depth, whereas the A7S III model only detects the face and the eyes of humans. The ZV-E1, however, also recognizes the body and head in different poses. For non-human subjects, the ZV-E1 model can also detect birds, insects, cars, trains, and aeroplanes. Aside from the amazing autofocus features that come in the ZV-E1, Sony has added a series of automated modes to make it easier for solo operators or for those of you who are just starting out. So for example, if you're filming one person and a second enters the shot, the camera can automatically adjust the aperture to make sure both subjects are sharp. Then we have a setting called auto framing. When enabled, the camera will crop the sensor and adjust the composition automatically to keep the subject in the center of the frame while moving. I mean, this feature is just wild. Just keep in mind, some of these features like auto framing involve cropping the sensor, which can sometimes translate into a loss of sharpness. There are other things such as the built-in microphone, which you can set to adjust automatically if a person speaks in front of or behind the camera. And the product showcase mode, where the ZV-E1 moves focus to an object when it is placed in front of the presenter. Both cameras feature in-body image stabilization. The A7S III has a slightly higher rating of 5.5 stops versus 5 stops on the ZV-E1. But the ZV-E1 introduces a new option, dynamic active. Similar to the normal active mode, the dynamic feature crops the sensor further to improve the performance and make the footage more steady. Okay, so I've just put it into dynamic active mode and we're gonna go for a run and test out the stabilization. Okay, you ready? Yep. All right, he's ready. Let's go. Yeah, the A7S III has always been about video first, but Sony's always kept the photography functionality. For example, there is a viewfinder, a full mechanical shutter, and all the basic features available on the other A7 models. The resolution of 12 megapixels might not be that attractive to photographers, but the A7S III is still a fully hybrid camera, capable of handling both photo and video equally. Now, the ZV-E1 is not the same. It's a video-first camera with a bit of photography functionality in it. A good example is the removal of the mechanical shutter, which means you can only use the electronic version. This is fine for silent shooting as well as general photography outdoors that doesn't involve fast-moving subjects. So the ZV-E1, being more recent, offers a few extra features that you don't get with the Sony A7S III. One of them is breathing compensation. It only works with selected Sony lenses, but allows you to eliminate the small change in field of view, like a zoom effect, when changing focus point from short to infinity. But honestly, I don't understand why such a useful feature has not been made available on the A7S III or to any other flagship Sony cameras. It just needs a firmware update. Sony, we're patiently waiting. There is also a CineVlog mode in the ZV-E1 that sets recording to 24 frames per second and adds black bars to the top and bottom to simulate the cinematic widescreen aspect ratio. It also selects the S-Cinetone profile, to which you can add a series of looks to change the color and contrast of your image. This is really handy if you're on the go and want a cinematic look to your videos. Another neat thing on the ZV-E1 is being able to use it as a webcam to stream video and audio without the use of software or any plugins. Just use the USB cable. One thing you will only find on the A7S III model is the possibility of outputting 16-bit RAW video. You can then use an external recorder like the Atomos Ninja to record the absolute best quality the camera has to offer. The ZV-E1 has a big advantage here. It is more affordable but inherits the same sensor and high-end video specifications of the A7S III model. You could say it's a baby A7S III. Oh, it's so cute. It also has new automatic modes designed for solo travelers and vloggers, and some of them look very handy, especially if you're just beginning your filmmaking journey. So my thoughts are, if you're someone who's wanting to get into film or vlogging and is wanting the best compact full frame camera that compares to the A7S III, but with all of the new AI features, then this camera is a fantastic choice and it's a bit more budget friendly. Otherwise, if you're someone wanting the best of both worlds when it comes to photo and video, has a bigger budget and is not too fussed with AI features, then the A7S III would be the one for you. So if you have any questions about the ZV-E1, pop them in the comments below, or you can visit our store in George Street, Sydney, Australia. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook to keep up to date with our latest promotions and offerings. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel as we post videos regularly. But until then, stay tuned. Peace.